to share with other people. Thank you, Zoom, for telling us that. So if you don't want to be on screen, we understand. This is just for our internal use and to possibly share with other people who want to know about our group and what we're doing. I also want to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement. And I know we're all coming from different places, so I invite you, if you'd like to note the indigenous land that you are on. I'm here in Harlem, New York City, on the original land, the indigenous land of the Lenape people, and honor them and respect them for tending this land long before we got here, and want to honor and respect them as we gather here to work together in community to build a better future for our country and our world. So we invite you today. A lot of what we're talking about is kind of looking ahead to 2022, and we'll be talking about the kinds of work we expect to be doing in 2022. But we'd love to hear about your goals, and so we will be sharing a lot of information from 21, but the real focus is on what comes next, and that is winning the midterms and the other crucial races for this next year. We will be putting in a link to a very short survey that we'd love you to fill out to let you tell us about your goals and how you'd like to be involved, and certainly how we can help you in this process. And so there is a link going into the chat to Hope, can you do that link to the survey? And some point today, before you go, we'd love you to fill that out for us. To let you just a little bit about who we are, our group is called Target Majority. We are one of the oldest and largest and most active swing left groups in New York City. And we've been working together to help Dems increase turnout in swing districts from North Carolina and Florida to New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Arizona since March 2017, when our group kind of began to formulate. Swing Left's mission, if any of you are unfamiliar with it, is to help us get the greatest possible impact in the tightest winnable races. So we rely on Swing Left to identify the candidates and the races post primaries that could use the help the best and where they feel we could have the maximum impact. And we, in turn, our mission is to run and volunteer for actions that can have the highest possible impact in tight winnable races and on issues that have become existential for our nation and our planet. And we'll go into more of those issues as we go in. Part of the goal, what we've done this year, is we've also become an indivisible group. And that has allowed us to broaden our focus from just the elections, which of course are very important, but also what we don't do so much with Swing Left and what we're able to do with Indivisible is work on really important issues and policies, such as fixing democracy, stopping voter suppression, fighting climate crisis, and more. And as an indivisible group, we were able to double our impact with a recent fundraiser. So we recently raised ourselves $500, and Indivisible gave us a matching gift of $500 for that. So that is funds that we'll be able to use towards our activities, potentially renting vans to go to Philly to register voters, or the printing costs for our Please Vote letters, which we'll be talking a lot about later, or supplies, clipboards. So we're really excited to have a little seed money in the bank account for that. And we'll make a soft pitch that if you do want to give any contribution to the group for these purposes, you can use this link that is going in the chat. It's bit.ly/TM donation. And also much more about our page at about our group at our webpage, bit.ly majority. So I think that next I want to do our official, this is off the record and closed to the press. So if you are with the press, you required requests. You are not covering this. This is all off the record today. And our agenda. So we're going to be doing a debrief on a 21. We're going to talk about what we learned about all those vote forward letters that we wrote and did a lot of good. We're going to talk about where we are in the campaign to ensure voting rights and protect our democracy that way. And we're going to look at what happened in Virginia this year and what's happening in Pennsylvania and what we'll be doing there. Then we'll take some questions and answers. Then we will do 4 short mini workshops on some of the approaches to work to hopefully get us just build our skills, make us even stronger and better as we go out there and work for 2022. And then we'll come back to that question of how do you want to plan your 22 and what would you like to do with us? And now I think I am handing it over to you, Hope.
Awesome. Thank you. And so I am Hope Singson. I am the core team lead. And let's see, I'll pass the chat population duties back over to you, Jason, as we dive in here. One of the things that we've been doing really since, I forget if it was as soon, I think it was 2018, not 17, but we've been doing for many elections now, and many of you probably have, please vote letters that we send to constituents in swing states or swing districts. And actually, I'd love if anybody who has been writing vote forward letters, even just one letter, to just chime in the chat. I imagine there's some people who may not have tried these before, so I just wanted to also include this little image of what they're like. We write a personalized message in every letter. We sign by our first name, maybe tag on a PS. We sort of personalize what otherwise is a pre-printed letter. And in 2020, it exploded as a enterprise. It had been growing and growing, and in 2020, with the amount of interest everybody had in that election, we had 200,000 volunteers through scores of partnerships, and ultimately together we sent 17.5 million letters. And these specifically go to underrepresented voters in what the New Georgia Project actually calls the New American Majority: youth, people of color, and single moms. This whole thing has always been handled as randomized controlled trials, and we have known that it works. But with the Big Send, doing this on such an enormous scale and such a critical election, we were really excited by the results. It seriously worked, and I'm going to share with you some of what Vote Forward provided of the data behind that. So I'll also just say that data got validated by really a best-in-class source, the Analyst Institute, which is as I understand it, a left-leaning data resource for understanding what kind of tactics have what kind of impact. We also should share in the chat, I didn't do this yet. Jason, if you could just go ahead and share the link to these slides. There's going to be resources in the slides that obviously you can't get just looking at them, like this link to watch the whole big data, the Big Send data call yourself if you wanted to. But here's the skinny. So the way a randomized controlled trial works is that you have a population represented by the pink figures here that you're going to actually engage with your intervention. And then you have a control group, people who are not going to receive your letter in this case. However, they're the same in every other respect. They're randomly assorted people in the same media market. And then you look at who turns out to vote, and by constructing it properly, you're able to say that the difference is due to your intervention. So it's really critical in talking about the presidential cycle to think about it and say, like, everybody got the same Democratic party mailers. Everybody was watching, in general, the same TV commercials from both sides. And we know that in midterm elections previously, we had seen quite an impact from our letters, around 2% roughly. And that is enough often to win a tight race. In a presidential year, however, to quote the slide from Vote Forward, they're weird. They're just wild. It's actually so saturated with communications that it's almost impossible to see very much impact from a single tactic normally. So, as it says here, many experiments we're aware of in a presidential year, the observable effect was a few hundredths of a percentage point, or really no observable effect that you could really hang your hat on. So what we could have expected, really the best we could expect, would be 0.2 percentage points increase in turnout thanks to our letters. And that would be great. Actually, we saw 0.8. So it was very exciting. Honestly, what this meant is 126,000 net votes spread across the map of states. This is electorally significant differences. Just to look at three examples. In Arizona, the vote margin was just 10,500 votes. And in fact, if we apply that 0.8 to the number of letters Vote Forward volunteers sent to Arizona, perhaps we turned out 7,000 plus of those 10,000 voters. If you look at Georgia, where we really saturated with letters, the math would suggest if that, 0.8 was true in Georgia, which it's a lot of, we're really extrapolating here. These blue numbers are my math. This is not a claim Vote Forward has made to say like we won Georgia. That obviously would be a little bold. But you get the idea. We do have the ability with these letters to turn out differential margins of voters that we believe will vote Democratic. There are two types of lists with Vote Forward. One is the list we try to always work on with Swing Left, which is the partisan list. It's registered Democrats, but they don't always vote. The other list is what they call the social list, and both lists are to underrepresented voters, but the other list is nonpartisan. And that's so that groups who are nonpartisan, have to be nonpartisan due to their tax status, can participate with this effort. But, we're a little more, even more confident with that Democratic list that we're turning out Democrats. So just a tip for when you're adopting voters in the future, always go with that political list. So the result of this is Vote Forward letters in 2020 are among the highest impact turnout programs ever measured in a presidential election. And this claim is validated by the Analyst Institute. So that was already really spectacular. We already knew that these were effective. They outperformed, as I showed, like 0.2 versus 0.8 by 4 times what we had maybe hoped ideally to see. Now, there's even more coming. Because they also have done experiments in this last year. They're always running little tests. They're testing the format of the letter. They're testing bilingual letters, and those did show, certainly in some markets, those seem to be performing better. So we'll probably see that more in future campaigns. But also, for the first time, they did a message test. So they instructed a set of volunteers. They gave them a training, which we're actually going to do a little introduction to later today. They gave them a training on how to write. The personal message we put in always starts, I vote because, or I vote in every election because. So they taught people to put a really personal spin on that, like something that grabs you. One of the examples says, in the operating room, right after giving birth to my son, I promised him, blah, blah, blah. Another person told the story of being horribly impacted by climate change with the California wildfires. So, and then they generally conclude, so I want to elect people who will, deliver on these issues that I care about so personally. These letters, they tested against the regular messages that is just any reason that you wanted to fill in, I vote because. And this little graph on the left shows that these personal storytelling letters, it was a small experiment, so I don't want to overstate. But in this small experiment, it doubled the effectiveness of these letters. So we're all really excited about that. Data is still coming in from other trials. They are constantly innovating. And actually, there's a link here on this slide to a second call where they shared the data about all these other experiments. They're looking at a lot of exciting ways to continue amplifying the impact that we're having to turn people out to vote. Whether that's just in a civic sense, a nonpartisan sense, it is good for our democracy when people vote, no matter how they vote, but also with our partisan goals in mind, especially with those political lists. So I'm going to actually hand it to David, core team buddy, to give a little update about where we're at with voting rights and the work we've been doing this year.
Thanks, Hope. I'm David Derbyshire, another core team member, and I want to talk a little bit about what we've been doing this summer, promoting a passage of the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Acts, both of those acts. We've been really busy, working really hard trying to get those really crucially important bills up for a vote and get them passed. All summer long, we've been running between 2 and 3 phone banks every week in conjunction with Common Cause and with End Citizens United. We've been running phone banks into West Virginia, Arizona, New Hampshire, and Delaware. And in these phone banks, we've been calling voters in those specific states and asking those voters to contact their senator and ask them to support getting those acts passed. And we've had a really cool kind of program where we're actually able, if we get a voter on the line who wants to leave a message, we're actually able to directly patch them through to the senator's office and leave a message for them right away. So that has been an ongoing effort. There have been many volunteers making many calls, and that has actually generated thousands of voicemails to the senators who are most critical for getting these voting rights acts passed. And as you probably know, all of our Democratic senators say they are in support of these bills. The question is, how much do they support these bills? And a couple of senators have been perhaps reluctant to push as hard as they could. There's also been reluctance about changing the filibuster, which of course the Republicans have been using to prevent this coming up for a debate or a vote. These calls have really helped to move Senator Manchin, who has been a key person who has questioned whether he can support passing these bills or changing the filibuster. And he has, over the summer, changed his position or modified it, or in subtle ways indicated that he is at least open to making the changes that would be necessary to get this thing passed. So we're optimistic that we're going to be able to get this through. Our plan for the rest of this year and for next year is to keep the phone banks going on Wednesday and Saturday, and until this bill gets passed. And we know that Senator Schumer is pushing hard on it. He repeatedly says that. He repeatedly says it's an absolute must that these bills get passed. A bit on the filibuster. There is a lot of discussion going on right now about how to change it and how it's really not right that it's being used simply to obstruct everything, particularly for something as important as voting rights. Maine's Senator King is leading discussions about modifying the filibuster, and there's lots of things that could be done to change it in a way that would allow a bill like this to come to a vote without actually removing the filibuster altogether. There could be a carve out for voting rights legislation. There could be a requirement that a filibuster have a 40% majority to put it in place. There could be a requirement that a filibuster actually require the senator filibustering to talk in the Senate for it to have effect. All those things would be modifications that would allow this perhaps to pass. And we are very hopeful that something like that will be happening. The Democratic leadership say that once the Build Back Better bill has been passed, then the Voting Rights Act things will be a priority, and that we can look for action after that happens. So we think that's probably very early in the new year, and very likely there's going to be actions, vigils, actions, protests, or more organized public things to drum up support for the act once it's on the docket for discussion and a vote. So that's voting rights. Thank you. And I guess back to you, Hope.
Yeah, thank you. And Lee, I saw your question in the chat. Yes, you're correct. It's not a good idea to call other people senators, but what we're doing in these phone banks is we call their voters. So we call into West Virginia and we talk to West Virginians, and we can press a button that puts them into Senator Manchin's voicemail, or the same thing in Arizona with Senator Sinema or Mark Kelly, etc. So we aren't calling the senator directly, we are driving calls to those senators. So I'm going to now run through what we learned from Swing Left about what happened in Virginia, because basically when I listened to Ryan Quinn, the director of campaigns with Swing Left National, I found it very eye-opening, so just wanted to pass that along. I'm going to try to go a little faster than I did on the vote forward part because, first of all, again, we're sharing these slides and you can read it over, but we are trying to actually catch up a little bit. I think I slowed us down. And we want to be sure we get to those workshops. So what happened in Virginia? Ryan said, it was a high turnout election. So why did we lose? We tend to think like if we can turn people out, it's going to be a Democratic wave. Well, as you may know from reading major media, Youngkin won by 30,000 votes, and it was basically due to much higher Republican turnout. And I want to just repeat, this is all per Ryan Quinn. This is not my expertise. I am not an expert, but I want to pass along what the opinion was from Ryan and Swing Left. So much higher Republican turnout, especially in rural conservative voters, made the difference. And I'm just going to do, excellent. So the hard Republican base was highly motivated due to our trifecta in DC. Meanwhile, our base was less motivated because of our struggles getting the bipartisan infrastructure and Build Back Better passed, and Afghanistan, and you see the headlines. Another really critical difference is Republicans began their field operations door knocking in early summer, early June and July. And they really maximized turnout in those rural and West Virginia areas. We could have won if we had maximized turnout in our really blue areas. But our field operations didn't actually start till the fall. So this was a key difference. Also, just in terms of what happened, the GOP did take control of the Virginia House of Delegates. Thankfully, we still hold the state Senate. So we won't see Youngkin just pushing through legislation willy-nilly. The Republicans at the state house level won with smaller shifts than in the governor's race. It was about 3% of state legislative voters that moved to the GOP versus 2019 on average. Down ballot Dems generally tracked with or outperformed McAuliffe. So, but a warning sign is that suburban areas that have sometimes trended blue turned out more for the GOP. They had more enthusiasm, more of their voters turned out than our voters. So, but on the upside, the districts that Swing Left adopted in general, as far as we know so far, using election day vote data only, outperformed McAuliffe at the top of the ticket. The rest of the vote data is still pending, coming in from Virginia, so all we could look at was election day they will share more updates when we have it. But this is a reason for hope. The smaller margins and the fact that our efforts seem to have made a difference is a reason for hope, as hopefully the enthusiasm in our base improves as we actually do see the Democrats passing our agenda. So, but lessons, as I'm sure you discerned, the Democrats are going to be much earlier in field and making more investments in the infrastructure for field operations earlier, which is going to hopefully make a big difference. Obviously, compared to 2020 and through COVID, we've really been impaired in getting into the field. So hopefully through vaccination, through safety measures like masking, we're going to be able to get back out in person again in 22. So the other thing to give us a little bit of hope is the GOP is going to try to follow Youngkin's model, but it's going to be difficult. Youngkin was a special case. No primary, new to politics, so scandal-free candidate, and actually quite disciplined in the way that he maintained focus on local issues and divisive issues where he was effective, and yet didn't get locked in with Trump because, again, no primary pushing him to be ultra Trumpy. So all of these, helped him to keep that strategic distance, and we don't expect that to be possible in 22 for most candidates, that are going to have to go through primaries where we expect the most Trumpy candidates to actually prevail with the GOP because of the dynamics on their base. So the other thing that was interesting is just to be cautioned, we have to be careful and avoid actually falling in with Trump-driven messaging. And instead, Ryan at least feels our focus should be on kitchen table issues. We can see from polling and research, critical race theory buzzwords and disinformation didn't persuade folks in the middle, but it did actually help accelerate turnout in the hard right base. So it doesn't help us to be bringing that up, obviously, or talking about it. I am actually going to run a little workshop later that addresses educational messaging, where yes, we have to address it when it comes up, but we need to actually shift to focus. So rights of parents messages did resonate with the middle. We saw in Virginia, and McCullough's stumble cost him. But we still own education as an issue category. So it's really about how do we position it. And as I said, we can talk more about that in the workshop I'll be running in a few minutes. The other thing to keep in mind is we do see polarization just getting worse and worse. And it means that actually there's fewer people in the middle. There's fewer persuadables. So everything we can do that increases turnout in those down ballot races, as well as statewide, we need to do. And having marquee candidates, hopefully good candidates at the state level, definitely can help by creating coattails that'll lift turnout statewide. We do see a number of really important states where there will be marquee candidates, including Pennsylvania, and obviously those better organized field campaigns earlier. So we're going to talk a minute about the states that Swing Left is going to focus on, but there's a number with statewide campaigns that are really important, and you can see the list on the screen here. So the impact that we had in Virginia, 85 groups in 21 states, including our own, got involved. A million letters, not 100 million, a million letters, 160,000 phone calls, 50,000 door knocks. Our group from July through November ran, some weeks it was 1, some weeks it was 3, around 2 a week. We did phone banks for the candidate we supported, Rosalind Tyler. We also held weekly letter parties to Virginia. All in all, Swing Left efforts helped several close House of Delegate races come within a few hundred votes of a 50-50 split in the House of Delegates, which in a year like this one was, a significant achievement And in doing that, we built a grassroots infrastructure, even though we didn't hold the House of Delegates. We built infrastructure that's really key year over year for these state legislative races. So just a quick glimpse about the national view for 22 from Swing Left. Obviously, our strategy is to hold the House and Senate. We also really need to win key governor races, and that is critical to prevent election subversion, as well as to enact progressive policies in so many states and to start winning back some states with so much of the state level painted red these days. Also building that state legislative bench, as I said, like whether these are opportunities to take back a chamber or just build up our candidates over the years. This is really important work. The interesting thing that I learned from Ryan is that actually for the US House, the field of competitive seats is going to be smaller than it was in 2018 or 2020. And this is related to the redistricting that's happening right now in so many red-controlled states that were already controlled by the GOP back in 2010 when the districts were last drawn. So there's not much advantage for them to gain. They already took all that advantage when they drew their last maps. So the net change may only be 3 or 4 seats to the Republicans through redistricting, which is actually better than I think I had expected it to be. Lawsuits are going to be a critical path for us to try to hold the majority by pushing back on gerrymandered maps, and we'll have to just see how those play out. So our targets at the national level with Swing Left. The Senate seats, you can see this list. There's a bunch of them. Some are holds, some are flips. In Pennsylvania, our nearest beloved swing state in New York City, there is an open seat. Senator Toomey is retiring. So this is a really, really great opportunity for us to hopefully add to our Senate majority. And state level races, again, in Pennsylvania, you've got a governor's seat. So in really 2 marquee statewide races going on in Pennsylvania next year. State legislative races, some really important ones in Pennsylvania also. And for House seats in our area, we expect Pennsylvania to mostly be holds. There may be 2 races that could be potential flips. One is in Bucks, the other is Harrisburg area. We'll see because we're still waiting for the Pennsylvania maps to be drawn. In New York, we have holds that are going to be really important, but also some chances to pick up seats and offset the GOP redistricting, because we are in control in New York and we were not in control when the maps were last drawn in 2010. So this means there's an opportunity, yes, for us to gerrymander New York, and I'm not happy about that, but I am happy about it because at the moment, until everything can be fair, we absolutely, thank God, we have the opportunity to get some flippable, some new seats for the Democratic side in the House. In New Jersey, it's looking like mostly holds. We are going to be waiting in terms of what is our group going to get involved with. I'm sort of teasing here what comes next, but we're definitely going to be involved heavily in Pennsylvania. We don't know yet if we're going to be more needed for some New York pickups or holds or New Jersey holds. It's going to depend on what the rest of the Swing Left groups are adopting, and we're going to be figuring out where we can get for door knocking and where we're needed. So that's going to come in January. But we're very interested to know what where you're leaning. So that's part of the survey that we're going to ask you to fill out. So just a quick update on redistricting. 20 states have approved maps. Additional states, 18 states are still in the drafting stage. As I mentioned, the competitive field looks like it's shrinking. This is a repeat. I already shared most of this with you. So great, we can skip this slide. I want to actually segue now to focus in on Pennsylvania because it is our closest critical swing state. And again, there's a link on this slide and in the speaker notes on some of the other slides to the full debrief call that we attended and that this information is coming from. So in a moment, I'll pass the baton to Eric, but I'll just sort of do the quick setup here. The story in Pennsylvania, as Turn PA Blue explained it for me, in 2020, we really didn't see at the state level coattails from Biden. Biden was the only one fighting Trump, and he was the only one who saw the kind of turnout that Biden got because people were anti-Trump. However, the rest of like the local races went very red, or most. In 21, we actually saw the inverse. Some of the local races did generate so much enthusiasm that in those areas, they boosted the statewide vote. In 21, we didn't have marquee races going on in Pennsylvania. And again, the Republicans did sweep most local races. However, and there's one other sad note, which is that in Philadelphia, which doesn't have the greatest turnout in off-cycle elections historically, again, it was very weak turnout. It was 18%. Philly is like true blue, so this seriously hurts us anytime we're not getting voters engaged in Philly. There were some bright spots that we'll talk about more in a second. In Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is located, there were a lot of Democratic wins. And in Lehigh Valley, which is closer to us, Allentown, Bethlehem, I believe all the school board races were won by Democrats. And we'll talk more about Allegheny in a second. I'm sorry, Lehigh in a second too. So for 22, our group is going to be looking for what are the counties and districts where we can work and have a hope of boosting the statewide turnout. So we focus locally in an area where we feel there's a lot of vote to get, and therefore can get that sort of upward coattail that we saw in 21. At the same time, we've got the marquee races hopefully benefiting the down ballot races at once. So Eric, you want to take it over from here?
Sure. I'm Eric Chenoweth, also on the core team. And I think one of the interesting things about the Turn PA Blue briefing was a presentation by a political scientist named Lara Elizabeth Putnam, who's I would encourage people to follow on Twitter if you have Twitter. She does a lot of interesting analysis, and what she found in 2020 especially was an interesting dynamic. We're not exactly sure what it was due to, but it was likely due to COVID, which was a reversal of partisan voter registration trends in summer and fall of 2020, where the GOP actually outperformed the Democrats in voter registration, and in surprising age categories like 18 to 24 and 25 to 34. And that's a deficit that she thinks that needs to be reversed, and is something that absolutely needs to be focused on. The next slide.
Sure, and I'll just point out for folks, the hatch marks is how voter registration was going until shutdown, and then the solid bars are what happened after shutdown. So you can see some places where we were, doubling the registrants of the GOP, and then they doubled us.
So what we saw in 2020 was a lot of increase in red voting, net GOP votes in various counties. Unfortunately, in Chester and Delaware, I think too, in 2020, which was a reversal from 2018. And then in the next slide, what we can see is sort of over a period of time, the average net GOP votes for statewide candidates. And you can see in 2020 and 2021, and especially earlier, that is very close. It basically means that working in Pennsylvania is very, very important for statewide races. And in 2018, it was important in electing a Democratic governor and in flipping 3 seats in Pennsylvania. And in the next slide, the 2021, I think Hope mentioned, was a mixed panorama on the statewide level. Republicans were obviously motivated to get out to vote for the Supreme Court races. It's an unusual state where that elects the Supreme Court. But a Democrat did keep the Constitutional Court seat, so it wasn't a total loss. And if you can see, there are higher turnouts, Democratic turnouts in a variety of areas. Lehigh, Montgomery, and Allegheny. What Lara Putnam pointed out was the lower turnout in both 2020 and 2021 in highly impoverished areas, especially with Latino and Black in Latino and Black neighborhoods, and that is going, should be an area of focus. But in Lehigh, for example, I looked at all of the results, and there was a dominant Democratic victory in Lehigh County, as there was in Allegheny. And then Hope, I think you had really highlighted the number of impressive wins and of firsts, especially among Black women candidates in a number of areas across the state in local areas. So showing that in local areas, you can generate high turnout with dynamic and new faces and that have changed the representation in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, definitely. And my understanding is, and this is actually Laura Putnam's slide, but my understanding is that was one of the drivers for such great enthusiasm in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, was that there was just a phenomenal Black first time, I forget if it was, I think it was a Black woman mayor candidate who won. And there wasn't any kind of candidate that was really motivating in Philly for the community that may have had to do with less turnout as well. I was just going to also skip back a slide and point out, let me just point out here, this map is showing the net GOP votes. And so basically the bluer, the fewer GOP votes in 2020. And there are certain counties that we've got our eye on, which is the ones that we've got the arrows pointing to. And these are the same counties, if you look at this map, where there's a trend toward greater voter participation. So if the colors are getting more intense, if the green is getting more intense, as well as the orange actually, then we're seeing more people turning out to vote. And this is the share of statewide vote. So actually in Lehigh, in 2016-17, it was a bit on the red side, but Lehigh in 2020-21 is clear. It's like a, not pink anymore, not red anymore. And Montgomery is getting darker green, Bucks is getting a lot darker green. And so this is just, I'm trying to read a little reduced scale, apologies. But this is showing potentially areas where we could get more votes. There's more votes on the table if we focus there. So this is why we actually are looking at Montgomery, potentially Bucks, potentially Lehigh. These are also areas that we can get to within about a 2-hour drive. Similarly, we're looking at getting to Philly to do voter registration because it is just so solidly blue, and also focusing in community colleges has been a really great strategy of ours in the past. So we are going to use carpools to places we can't get to by train, or maybe a mix of things. It really depends on how many of you are interested in driving, if you have cars, how many of us are available to drive, but we're going to also, as I said, be looking at potentially some New York districts or New Jersey, which again we can get to by sometimes by train or possibly by car. The other thing we're going to be doing for sure is vote forward letters to the Pennsylvania political list. And I would love, actually, Jason, if you could put the link to the survey in the chat. This is, I think we're near the end of the debrief part and have shared some of the highlights of what we have in mind. I'll continue that, but anytime now, if people wanted to start just sharing with us what you have in mind, it's going to really help inform where we put our focus to know like what you're motivated by. So calendar wise, we're thinking winter, we're going to be adopting districts in hopefully January and hold a kickoff call actually on January 30th, which is already up on our webpage that you could RSVP for today. We'll give you the link at the end of the meeting, or you can go there anytime. We're going to continue voting rights phone banks, hopefully just into January, but into February if we had to, until that gets passed. We're going to be offering a series of skill workshops, and we'll do a little teaser sort of experience of some of them today, things that we think are going to help us in our work in 22. And we may even choose to run our Show Blue Love fundraiser. We've often done it in January up to February 14. Would be very interested to know, like, are you interested in asking people to give $22 for 22 to protect our majorities? And starting whenever they're available, February, March, we're going to get right on those vote forward letters and actually do even more letter writing than phone banking in this cycle. One of the things that we have learned from that research that was so impressive in the presidential cycle is that as if you can go canvass and door knock, go do that. If you can't do that, write letters, or do both. But when you're not out door knocking, write letters. And if it's a point where there's a reason to not be writing letters, whether it's I'm not sure what that reason is, but there are reasons why people might prefer phone banking, so then we might offer phone banking. And certainly after the deadline passes for mailing our letters, then we would do a lot of phone banking, and it can be very useful for these voting rights phone banks. As I mentioned, we're patching through people straight through, highly strategic, highly impactful, or closer to the election to make sure people have their polling place information, or they know to get that vote by mail ballot in the mail, or we're chasing that ballot. Like, there are times when phone banking could be very high impact, but we're going to shift our focus. Like, for the last year, we've been doing a ton of phone banking. We're probably going to shift our focus to a little more onto letters. So that is the state of our plan, definitely in draft form, and we're all going to have to figure out exactly which parts we want to volunteer to lead, and we would love to know which parts you would like to volunteer to participate in. And so if you want to be filling out the survey, we also wanted to just take a moment to answer some questions. I see, how are we for time, Jason? Do we have like 5 minutes left for this?
We are
supposed to be starting our workshops about now.
But we only have a couple. We really only have a couple questions that I'm seeing.
Great.
Stu asked about whether Ohio is going to be considered flappable.
I would have to look back at the list of what we said the swing left targets are. It's not likely to be something our group will focus on, and I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Actually, I'm just clicking back.
Yeah. And Stu, again, we kind of rely on swing left's analysis to make the decisions where we put
Yeah,
ourselves into.
it doesn't look like one that they are highly focused on this time around. I don't know the reason, but they'll be making more announcements in January, behind their adoptions and their strategies. So stay tuned.
Steve, I think I gave you the information. Great question about what the timeline is for the redistricting of maps. And so I found Nate Silver's got a whole profile on all the states and what's going on. And I put that link in the chat. And then hope to see Lee's question about coordinating the lists so that voters. And Lee, I'm guessing you're talking about phone banks particularly. And that question of how do we stop voters, or how do we keep it so voters don't get so sick of us calling? Hope you want to speak to that?
Well, yeah, it is a perennial challenge, and I'll just say that there are some reasons that it is actually not possible to coordinate in the ways that we might wish that we could. Principally the tax status of different organizations, and they are prohibited from collaborating. For instance, the nonpartisan organizations that are calling everybody to boost participation in a nonpartisan way are prohibited from coordinating with any partisan organization. So I think that it's the sort of thing that people often will complain to us about when they pick up our calls, but I don't believe there's any research that shows that it inhibits turnout, though it is, I'm sure, very annoying for people in swing states. And is that it for questions, Jason? Should we dive into
That is it for questions, yeah. So I think we can keep going.
Yeah, let me actually bring back the screen share. And we're going to just jump right in. We're going to give really, really quick, guys, if we can focus on like 30-second teasers. And keep in mind, we will be offering fuller trainings in the new year. But go for it, David.
So a new thing has been evolving in the world of political persuasion, which is called deep canvassing. And basically what it is it's an attempt to persuade voters by kind of engaging them in conversations that are a little deeper and a little bit more personal than the conversations that are very kind of bullet pointed and it's something where we learn to listen to voters, to extract from them what their concerns are, and to try to figure out ways to redirect our message so that it can resonate with what they are concerned about. And we're finding that we're using it to some degree in our phone banks to get the Voting Rights Act passed. And I think it will have a lot of possibility just as a general approach in all sorts of canvassing, telephones, even letter writing. Just try to get connected with other voters a little bit more. So that's what deep canvassing is.
And in this little workshop, there'll be a little chance for role play using our voting rights script, actually.
That's right.
And just a little taste. Rhea, do you want to give a quick?
Yeah, sure. So in a similar way, with letter writing, you're not listening to a person, but you have an opportunity to really bring up the personal and make an emotional connection. Just like if you read a story about someone else's experience that really touched you, this is persuasive in the same way. So in the workshop, we're just going to talk about how to go about writing those personal letters.
Exactly. The Vote Forward personal stories that we saw really improved turnout. So, and Ken and Mary Ellen?
Yeah, so my name is Ken. I'll speak quickly on behalf of the Climate Working Group, which is headed by Mary Ellen Sullivan. I see she's also in the meeting. Our main task so far has been to send out a monthly newsletter with a variety of ways that we can make a difference on a number of different levels. Climate change we see as, an issue that pervades sort of everything, and so we need to. It's something that has to be addressed on every level, including the federal level, the state level, the local level, and on the personal level. And we try to address all of those things with recommended actions in our newsletter. So check that out if you haven't seen it. Today in our workshop, we will be exploring this interesting simulator software developed by MIT that allows you to kind of take the wheel and, play a deity controlling policies in, fuels, conservation, efficiency, and seeing how changing different things can affect carbon emissions and predicted temperatures. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can join our breakout.
And I will say it's really cool. Oh, and then the last one is with me. I mentioned earlier that there is some messaging around education, and it's based on research using what's called the race class narrative. So if you're really concerned about the dog whistle, the racist dog whistles that honestly go back to Reagan and Nixon, but are especially overt now and are being used so effectively as rallying cries in school board races, you may want to join this workshop just to learn, first of all, about how the race class narrative is structured, but also hear that research about educational messaging. And we're going to be able to share some of the tools that we're sharing in these mini workshops with you via email after the meeting. So, and again, run fuller examples in the new year. So don't worry if you want to go to more than one, just choose one for now, and then we'll continue offering all of these resources into the new year. So with that, I think, whoops, we're not regrouping yet. I think, Jason, you have the breakout rooms to offer folks.
Yeah, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and we've set this up today so that you can choose your own breakout room to go into. I'm just putting the names of the groups in the chat as well. So if you're familiar with there, if you click on the breakout rooms button, you should see 4 different titles, and then there's a number, there's a little blue number on the right, and if you hover over that, you get a box to join. If for some reason you are having a problem joining, or I can assign you. So if there's somewhere, if you want me to just bop you into a breakout room, and these will be about 15 minutes of getting to do a little bit deeper dive into one of these topics. David, are you moving into your deep canvassing? If you'd like help, you can just put in the chat which one you'd like to do, and I'll move you over there. That would make it easier. Mimi, can I help you get into a room? Or you're mute.
Did you just talk to me?
Yeah, I just asked if you'd like me to move you into one of the rooms.
Yeah, because I was looking on the screen and I didn't find anything to click on. Climate simulators.
Okay, I am sending you there.
Great, thank you.
Oops. Bob and Terry, can I help you?
This is Terry. You can put me in letter writing.
Sure will. Bob, you there?
Hey, there we go. Having a little trouble on my iPhone here, Jason.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm not seeing an option. I'm only seeing you and me here.
Yeah, the phone is harder. There's letter writing or deep canvassing or the climate simulator or the race class narrative.
All good, but the letter writing would probably be best for me right now.
Great, I'll put you in there right now.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hi, Nancy. Are you just joining us? Nancy, are you just joining us now?
Um, can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
You can hear me. I'm in another meeting, but I wanted to leave that meeting to find out. I think you and I are the only ones left.
Well, our meeting is in breakout rooms right now. So we've got 4 different little smaller groups that are in session for about 5 more minutes.
Well, could I just ask you?
Sure.
I was doing Vote Forward. I think I'm going to be doing something else, but what I wanted to know is, are you making a video of this, your meeting today?
Yes.
So would I be able to gather all the information? I like to know everything that you're doing. And I need to go back to the other meeting.
Yes. So we are making, there will be a video posted. Did you had RSVP'd? Had you RSVP'd for this meeting?
Only about 6 times, because I had joined on my phone and I couldn't get on from the computer because the RSVP only comes to the phone. It only comes as a text message. You don't ever get.
You don't. Did you put in your email when you RSVP'd?
I did, but I only get text messages back. So the computer is now in the other meeting, and I'm in another.
I see. Okay. I see. Okay. So we are videotaping the meeting. We're recording this now. We will be making it available, but usually what happens is an email goes out to everybody who is on RSVP for the meeting. So you should probably get an email that would say, here's the link to the video.
All right. Well, thank you. I will go back to the other meeting, and I'm very interested in knowing what you're doing.
One thing I could do, if you'd like, I don't know if it would work on your phone, is I could share the link to our Google Slides that are showing all the stuff we're talking about today. Can you use that on your phone if I put that in the chat?
I can't save anything from the chat.
Right. You would just need to click it while you were.
Well, the slides won't be on the video.
They will be on the video. Yeah, they will be on the video.
What I'm doing, I'm following. I don't know if you know about Aaron Frank, but I'm following Aaron Frank, and I'm so frustrated because I just want to throw cash. I don't have any, but what cash I have, I just want to throw at all the candidates. Mm-hmm. But they're doing something with Working America. Have you ever attended any of their meetings?
I have not. I know the name Aaron Frank, but I haven't.
Well, they're doing one this evening. I can send you an invitation. They're doing one at 7:00 this evening. So I'm having to be very restrained. Friends have sent us stamps so we can write for Vote Forward again. I have to be very judicious with my finances. So what I want to do is I want to, whatever spending I do, to try to help us save our democracy, because it's really, I mean, every day, if you listen to the news, it's appalling.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and I'm also going to call back somebody. I keep forgetting to do it. I'm very frustrated with all the people who say, oh, I don't have time. I have to help my church. I have to do my writing. I have to help my friend, and all these people who don't understand the desperate straits that we're in.
Yeah.
And I tried to unsubscribe from all the Democratic bots because they're all hysterical. I'm sorry for shouting at you. You didn't do it.
I know what you mean. I know it gets exhausting. Just
it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. All the texts and emails and everything that we get.
It is. And I unsubscribe, and I'm still getting most of them.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, I may just have to, Working America, I wish that you could come at 7:00. Can I send you the invitation?
You can. I don't think I can't make it tonight at 7:00.
Because what they're doing.
What are they doing?
They have a really interesting strategy. And I think what they're going to try to do is find voters that are very hard to find. And I was discouraged because my daughter and I together wrote 200, maybe 300 letters and postcards for the election and the Georgia runoffs. And then again, for the Virginia governor's election was a complete disaster. McAuliffe just messed it up to the Queen's taste. He was a disaster. So I'm a little bit nervous about sending out vote forward letters, because I think what Working America is doing might, in this desperate time, be more effective. So I'm a little bit confused. Am I making sense?
You are. And Nancy, I'm sorry, but I'm about to bring all the people back to our big room here.
Oh, well, thank you for the private.
Yeah. It was good to. Yeah, but I have to. There's all these smaller groups that we're going to kind of bring back now. So I need to do some facilitation here.
Of course. Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for coming in here, and we will have the slides available for recording, and we're going to just wrap up the meeting now. You're welcome to stay for the wrap up. We're going to go till 5.
All right. Well, I have to go. I'll stay for a little bit of the wrap up. Then I have to go back to my other meeting. My life is on Zoom.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh.
All right. Yeah. We're going to have a bunch more people coming in about a minute. We saw, you're right about Virginia, that the candidate there was nothing we could do with that candidate.
Disaster. That was it's horrible.
But we saw, one of the things we talked about, and you'll see in the slides, is that the data on the vote forward letters shows that they were very effective.
They were effective.
They were very effective. And especially looks like they may have really had a very big impact in Georgia, particularly.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
They must have in the runoff.
Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting you.
So we're definitely feeling like the letter writing will continue to be a very, very effective, important strategy that we need to do.
May I tell you one more thing before you have to go?
Yes.
What you hear everywhere in the media, in the newspapers, on your phone, on the television, I can't even stand to listen anymore, is that the Democrats are so bad at messaging. So Democrats, what I heard Rachel Maddow say yesterday, she was talking with Lawrence O'Donnell, and she said, yes, the authoritarian Republicans are very organized. The Democrats are not. The Democrats are too nice, and they don't know how to be aggressive. So is that anything your group would want to think about?
Well, our group is just reassembling here, Nancy, and our group has been in some smaller discussion groups about strategies. I don't think that exactly is the strategy that has been discussed, but Hope, we're about 8 minutes left in. Do we want to do a share out, or do you want to jump to the?
I would love to see if we can just get a couple little bites out of the various workshops. Do really quick share outs, and then we can close out last couple minutes. So let's end at like 2 minutes to 5.
So anybody quickly want to share out from the letter writing group what you in a few sentence summary of what you found in that group?
And we're just like tossing this out to everybody cold. So It's okay if nobody wants to share, but if anybody wrote something, Rhea, how far were you able to get in the time we had?
We did pretty well. We had 3 people share, and they did a great job.
Awesome. Does anybody want to read your personal story for Vote Forward letters? Just one of them. And if so, you can unmute. And if not, that's okay. No pressure. Rhea, do you have yours handy?
Yeah, I can read mine. All right. I wrote because I nearly died of a blood clot when I was pregnant with my son. I'm so grateful that our insurance covered my stay in the hospital and that my state had started to cover family leave for myself and my husband. Without those policies, we might have lost our apartment. Every election, I look for leaders who care that families of all kinds have a financially stable home and who will protect the programs that kept us safe.
Wow.
Yeah, love that. Oh, sorry, Jason, you're running this part. You go.
That's okay. It looks like there were a lot of people in your group, Hope. Looks like we got a lot of interest in the race class narrative. Anybody want to share what you began to touch on in that workshop?
Well, Hope shared the outline of the work in progress, which I guess that's a fair way of putting it, and how we're going to approach it and just the overall themes. And I thought it was terrific, but I'm concerned that it's just a little bit too nice and diffuse, and doesn't hit the issue as hard as we maybe should. And I think that's to just pick up on Nancy's question. I think that's sometimes the problem that the Democrats have, that we are too nuanced, and that we are very conscious of doing the right thing, and that's all very wonderful, but that sometimes gets in the way of winning.
I would just caution that, or add the information that actually the race class narrative is all research based. So what they're doing is they're finding what works. And I don't know that, it's correct to say like that it's not going to work when it's actually
no. And I'm not saying that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah. No question that the messaging challenges are very, very intense these days. So we should probably keep going.
Yeah. Ken, what did your climate group get to do?
It was Mary Ellen and Mimi and myself. So since we had such a small group, we chatted for a while about where we were coming from and what kind of motivated us to get more involved, both with voting and climate. I guess if this is mainly for the attendees rather than the leaders to talk, I'm happy to open the floor to Mimi if you have anything you'd like to share. All right, but yeah, we did a brief. We briefly showed the climate simulator. It can't, like, the simulator itself is quite, it's quite complicated, can kind of be overwhelming at first glance. We do hope to do a more detailed workshop with a lot more time allowed, so there's time to go through it kind of in a more step-by-step way. For anyone in Swing Left who is interested in learning more about the impacts that different policies can have.
Essentially what I said was I was asking for the connection between this clearly extremely important project of information that was put together to influencing people to get out the vote, to work in this area. And I didn't know where the connection and how that was being done or proposed.
And I could actually share, for me, one of the barriers to engaging with voters around climate is I don't feel very educated on what the policies really mean, or what impact they could have. And obviously we're in such grave danger. I attended a workshop that Mary Ellen co-ran using the simulator, and I wasn't even there for more than 15 minutes total because I was sort of double teaming another political meeting at the same time. But I already came away feeling more empowered to talk about these issues. So I would really recommend, if you're worried about climate, which of course probably we all are, this is going to be a really great opportunity to it's a simulation as if it were a global congress of addressing the environment, I'm blanking on the name of the one that just happened, but what would you do if you spoke for this industry or that industry? And COP26, thank you, Mary Ellen, I knew that you would have it right. We're going to hold this, actually we've just set the date and I've created the event so that we have plenty of time. It's going to be February 27. And you'll see, actually, I'm jumping in, we haven't finished our regroups, but you'll see on that survey that there's a question about what time on Sundays or even on Saturdays is easiest for you to come to events. We're trying to decide if our standing time is going to be like noon on Sundays, 3 o'clock on Sundays, or maybe Saturday afternoons. So just a plug for, please let us know in the survey about that. And David, I think we have one group, right? Still? Deep canvassing.
Yes, deep canvassing. Thanks, Hope. So yeah, we did an actual kind of simulation ourselves, and in Feng, and let's see, Leslie spoke together, each taking roles. And I think it was productive and useful. It's funny, the deep canvassing thing sounds a little squishy sometimes when I describe it. And I think in general, we're all struggling with this kind of enormous task of how to persuade people, voters, that what we are doing and what we're promoting is really important and really worth doing. And this deep canvassing is one sort of way to try to think about that persuasion differently, because we're spending a lot of time and energy in working on this, and we want to be successful. We want to be as effective as we possibly can, and we're hoping that, and I think feeling with good reason that this might be a helpful way to move things. So that's it. Is anyone who was in the group like to add anything? Please jump in.
Well, I thought just also to answer Mimi a little bit, that the deep canvassing workshop you might want to go to connect the climate issue to talking to voters and persuading them. I think in the upcoming election, I think young people especially are going to be needed to convince that their vote is going to actually matter at a time of high partisanship. And, but we can tell them that if Republicans take control of the House and Senate, we're not going to act on climate, for example.
Thanks,
yeah, the other thing I was going to say is I found it helpful when David brought up big money, because the answer to so much of this has to do with fairness and making sure that the people are voting on what matters to them, and it's not the people with all the money that's deciding for everybody else.
That's right. Thanks, Leslie.
And I see that Renee shared in chat that they find deep canvassing inspiring, which is awesome. So
Yes.
we've just gone over, and I wanted to be sure to let you all go. We've hit the 5 o'clock mark, which is supposed to be the end of our meeting. We can linger a bit, and or some of us can linger a bit to talk more or continue debriefing from those workshops. I wanted to definitely just make one last plug about filling out the survey, and also I want to share links to sign up for, actually I'll just put our group page. You can sign up for the January 30th and February 27th events that we already have scheduled. So I'm going to put that link in the chat.
And Hope, will the slides go out in a follow-up email?
Yes.
And everybody who signed up will get that. So Nancy, it should come through, and the slides should come, and the slides and the video should come through an email.
Right. And I'm typing, but I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you so much to everybody for joining, for staying to the end, for joining us in the workshops. We're really looking forward to working with all of you in 22. And, my password is now changing to Blue Wave 22. Join me in the mantra.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you in January.
Thank you.
Everyone have a great holidays, and
Oh yeah, that too.
rest and recover a little bit before we go into the next year.
I take it, Hope, that we're going to receive in email what you wanted us to fill out.
Oh, there's a link in the chat, and if you can access the chat, that's great. And if not, yes, I will send the link to the survey again in the follow-up email too, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Hope, this is Nancy Cochran.
For organizing.
Oh yeah, thank you, Leslie. I know you're driving. You probably have to sign off. And
Yep,
and
take care.
Nancy.
Hope, may I have your email?
Oh sure. Let me just. I'm going to give you.
I've tried to reach you. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm in another meeting, but I came back here again. I'd love to have your email, and I had no way that I could correspond with you. Remember, you were going to bring me all the stuff, and then with the bicycle, and then we didn't do that.
We have emailed, but here it is again. I just did a typo though, so it's two zeros. It's not the letter zero. It's letter O.
I wrote to that address. It didn't go.
Do
you have my email? nfcochran@gmail.com. Can you write to me? So if I spoke with Jason. Jason spoke with me when I came in, and I just would love to stay in touch with what you all are doing.
Excellent. Yes, definitely can do that. And actually, I am going to stop the recording since we're in the after part.